Mike Hill, before I prove to you what may be the biggest illegal gambling operation in the country, and complete, and would be beyond your believability if I didn't show it to you this way. But I want you to understand what I'm going to show you in this corruption. Don't miss that it's your states that are allowing this. It's the corruption in our states that allow business like this to go on. There's the crime. It's the people you elected who buys in, who are paid off. It's being done in New Hampshire and Massachusetts along with Pennsylvania. I'm going to show you how it survives and how it covers up without question. First, why I'm doing this or how I'm doing this. I've been successful in business. I've owned 5 brokerage firms. I was 21 years old. I went from sleeping in my car to being 5 brokerage offices, owning the largest mortgage company brokerage firm in the United States, and being the world champion of horse racing, and been told that I might have won more races than anybody's ever lived. You know how I done all that? Again, from nothing? Insight. Don't you think you might need that in business? Being able to see through, plan, see how things work, get into the depth of things? That's exactly what I do. And then, the issues with racing, and I've been having them for years. Because years they've been cheating, wiring money offshore, pulling horses. But not like Penn National. Penn National is one of them. It is one big organization. But before I go there, I want to tell you how I saw it. It is with this insight. Did I bring something to the table? What if I looked at the state government in New Hampshire and Massachusetts by suing individuals and getting into the courts to know they're corrupt? What do you think I did in horse racing? Kept asking the questions, with the insight, kept getting deeper. And I found the answers. And the answer is we've all been sold out. It is corrupt. I'm going to show you this and you won't believe it, but I guarantee you it's true. I'm only betting my life on what I'm saying. Now, who's suing me and who said I'm lying? Ever. Why do you think that is? Insight and the truth. That's all we have. But I'm giving you one chance. I've gambled everything I own and my own welfare. I mean, all you have to do is read the text that I put up there that came from one of the attorneys, Ted Little here. He only threatened to murder my children, and he knows and he's dealt with both organizations. Do you think it'd be a good idea to give him immunity? And we put all these people in jail? We can do it. They've got you trained to think that you can't stand up and beat them. What can we do? I'm telling you we can do this. Now I'm going to show you how to put them in jail. All right, I'm going to prove the largest organized crime operation in the country. What the FBI isn't telling you, because they're covering it up, because they don't want you to find the people who are involved in this. Well, you know what? I'm going to give you them too. Okay? Go with me here, and we'll prove our case. What the FBI hasn't been able to do in 5 years, we'll do right here in the next 20 minutes. Before we start, crime fighters, I just want you to look at one thing. I wrote a statement in May of 12, and I broke down most of these pieces. You might call that insight. And I told you what was going to happen, how it was going to happen, and here we are. Okay, well, let's show it to you now. Mr. X, we'll start in the middle. Now, I know Mr. X was a crook, but what I didn't know till recently is he was one of the heads of the operation, if not the head. I was going different places. So when we figured that out, other pieces started coming together. So let's put up Mr. X. Ready? Paul Jenkins, former racing secretary, or at this time, the racing secretary in Penn National. Again, for those people who aren't into horse racing, a racing secretary is the guy who takes entries from agents, jock agents, and they fill the races. What if this guy was 100% corrupt? All right? What if this guy, in fact, was fired from his last 2 jobs? Now they're going to make it look like a retirement, like this one. In fact, in the last job, if we didn't have a witness die suddenly, this guy would have been in jail. Right? He was a racing secretary at Philadelphia Park and Garden State. Turns out he got fired for race fixing and taking bribes. Now, Penn National is a casino too. Do you think they miss valuation checks? Because it would have said this guy was a screaming crook. What if they were looking for that guy? They got him. No mistake. This guy was that guy. So he puts races together. Take the entries. Now how might you set those races up if you were going to cheat? Now you have jock agents who rides the horses. And they'll put the entries in quite often. And you have the trainers who train the horses. And they give their entries to the racing secretary. So this guy puts the races together. And that's how we started, from beginning to end. I'll show it to you. So, he's looking at them and saying, who do I put where? Who do I want in? They want this horse to win, I'll put it in there. Now he's coordinating that with the jocks agents. Now he's not supposed to be doing that, and these jock agents are part of the corruption. They run and control the jockeys that are going to pull horses. So he's talking to them, to Jenkins. Jenkins forming those races. Now these agents are going to deny that. But, well, I have a couple of other statements, witness statements. Let's take a look at this. You ready? I'm going to show you a picture. This picture is taken from the racing office at Penn National. Right across the hall, you see a gentleman who puts the programs together, so he gets the entries before anybody. Those are sports agents in there. That's these guys. They're manipulating the races from the computer. Are you ready? They used to do it in his office, but now that they're under a federal investigation, they do it about 10 feet away. I'll post a picture for you so you can see it. I'm sure they're going to be most interested on how I got it. Now these agents are working with Jenkins. They're on the computer putting the races together. In fact, witness statements from other agents will tell you that jockeys' agents are sitting in the racing office of Bo Runner. That's the picture I just showed you. The agent sets up the races for the last 5 years. They view all the answers and proceed to tell the trainers and friends where and how to enter their horses. This is a way to fix the races. They're stealing people's money. This is a gentleman who was working and trying to help the FBI, except for they're not doing anything. They're trying to tell them. They're telling them who's doing it, how they're doing it. All right. So now you're getting an idea how they pull the races together. Well, and here are the jockeys. You might remember Clifton and Otero Whitney. Those are the ones I said were cheating. I guarantee. Now, Clifton, for instance, they were all bad gamblers. Did you know that? Whitney owns multiple horses. They were pulling all the horses and they were working for Coolog because that's what they're supposed to do. Let's keep going. Now, if you have all this and you spent all this trouble in cheating, all right? Now, there's no money at Penn National. Now, the feds are coming out there and going to lie to you. In fact, here's an article, and again, I'll put it on the back. PA commission among agencies involved in bustle illegal gambling ring. This is so full of shit. How about this? The Racing Commission in Pennsylvania are all corrupt. I'll even show you that most of them own horses and are cheating. Right. So they're saying they helped with the gambling ring. They arrested here, you ready? This gentleman right here, Steve Shealy. Because now remember that, Mr. Shealy is our bookmaker. All right, now let's look at that article. You know what they called it? Sports betting. That only existed for 6 months. They've been doing this for years. One of the witnesses has been in the office for 5 years when they're putting races together, not 6 months. Oh, and they're all going to go to jail for sports betting. See, that's where the cover-up starts. Let's think about it. We're working with him. We're working with the agents. We're working with the jockeys and the trainers. And I'll go talk to you about the trainers. Now if they're looking to fix a race, how are they going to make money betting on the Eagles? They're not. We could play a game later on. See all those people? I'll bet you can't find 2 people who aren't degenerate gamblers. No kidding. This guy ran a tip sheet. Right? Now, oh, and we know this guy got arrested. And 9 more. There's actually 8. One guy put a bullet in his head. Right. So here's the bookmaker. So they didn't go through all this trouble fixing a race and not bet on it. Here's the big lie. Now pay attention. If you bet 300 bucks at Penn National, you go to 10 to 1 to 2 to 1. Do you know what that means? There's no money there. It means you can't bet on the grounds. You can't bet it. They're going to go through all this trouble to make a couple $100? No way. These guys are too smart for this. So let's see how it continue to go. So now we have the means of fixing the race. Even more. Hold on, sports fans. You see this Stephanie Beatty? This is going to be the best part. She's one of the trainers that run this. She turned around, is also the president of the HPPA. Hey, say for instance you got a problem with the racetrack, like it's unsafe. You would complain to your union. Except for, she's in the group. Why do you think she's there? That shuts all them up. Because Penn National goes, hey, they can get us through here. Well, let's own it. So now they own it, and they're corrupt, and they're involved in this gambling syndicate. They go to Stephanie Beatty, you protect us here. She's in the game. All right. Now, they didn't go through all this trouble. For instance, I'm sorry, Stephanie Beatty. There's a test box right here. All right? Now, Jenkins would control and have these people work for him. Now, this test box is where, after a race, they test you to see if you use drugs. Now, Stephanie Beatty only had 2 people who worked for her in the test barn. Now, how does that happen? No other place in the world, trust me. So now what they do is a guarantee. They got the trainers, they got the jockeys, the guy made the race. Wait a minute. Who asked the horse? He's not in on it yet. And then they load the horse up. Enough that he's going to go through the wall. Because they're not going to bet tens of thousands of dollars and have the horse not in on it. But how are you going to get by running a horse full of drugs? Because you're going to go through the test box and Stephanie Beatty's employees are going to switch to urine. Bingo. So now we got them making the race. We get the jockeys pulling the horses and the trainers giving the horses drugs so they would win. How do you lose? We even have the guys in the gate putting drugs in their mouth. I have done a text from the gentleman who just went to jail and who's the FBI informant. So you take it up with him. But see, no way of getting caught. There isn't any possible way to be had a higher possibility of winning than they just gave themselves. So now you just found out. Jenkins put the races together. Jock agents have their jockeys pull the horse. Sheely is the guy betting it. Now, where do they go? Who bets it? Who's the protection? Donnie Brown. Donnie Brown owns multiple restaurants and bars. One in particularly called the Firehouse Restaurant. Now, do you know that's right next to the courthouse? The federal courthouse in Harrisburg. It turns out that Mr. Brown is very friendly with multiple politicians, judges, everything. This guy. In fact, I've got him running fundraisers for Assistant DA Chardo to be the judge. Chardo. So wait a minute. Donnie Brown's running fundraisers for Assistant DAs. And he's got politician and judge in his restaurant all the time. And you know where they go? They go upstairs, where there's high-stakes poker games and gambling. That's where he works out of, see? They use the bar. That's the bookie agents. You know who this guy's best friend is? Sheely. Right. So here's the protection. Here's the bar owner. You know who his favorite customer is? How about ex-Governor Ed Randall? Right. In fact, our boy Brown had a computer. I got this from the same people the feds got it. And the feds have this computer or a copy of the computer. But so does Brown. And now you have all these politicians and judges on these computers. And the fact that they own horses. In fact, Mr. Randall, don't you have a couple horses with Stephanie Beatty? Right. Oh, it's under your aide's name. Right. Your horses. And there's more. See? So Brown was the schmoozer. So when the feds came into this, right, they started their investigation. You know how they started their investigation? You look at an article here. It said Cantor Gaming. New twist. Old issues. What it says here? A series of state and federal court filings by prosecutors has alleged links between Cantor's operation and a legal gambling world encompassing New York bookmakers and offshore gambling companies that allow to do business in the United States. Did you know Penn National was involved in them? Right. You see, now that we have a bookie, now that we have protection, you can't bet the money on the track. Do you really think you can fix a race at a globe-class racetrack like Penn National and give that bet to a bookie and not die? No way. There's your offshore gaming. So these guys had to use Cantor Gaming. You know how they got caught, how the FBI came here? If you read the article, they got caught because they were investigating a New York crime family that took them to Cantor. When they went to Cantor, you know what they saw? Penn National, because Penn National used the same illegal wiring of offshore betting. I showed you those wires in another video. Of course they did. See? Fixing the races with the racing center, put them together. Having the jockeys pull these horses. Having the bookie take the bet. Having the political connections to protect them. This guy's got a computer that would change the state of Pennsylvania. This is your legal wire service right here. Just before I talk about the cover-up, right? This is how they do it. It's how they bet, where they bet through. Nubia Bomadia. She's in licensing. I don't know if you remember, we called her out that she was licensing one gentleman that committed a murder. Well, we got lucky, he wasn't a terrorist. Right after we said that, they arrested 5. Out of there. Good job, FBI. And there's more. Yeah, that's right, I know that. And why have Nubia Bomadia? You remember Jenkins? Jenkins had multiple offenses. He should have been in jail. He gets in. See, licensing. Now, She works for him. Oh, by the way, they also have a physical relationship too. Right. So she licensed every dirty jockey and crook because that's who works for them. See? You get them all in. And if you have enough money, you can get in too. There you go. Now, let's move in to the protection. Let's move into the cover-up plan. As we would go to the HBPA and complain to Stephanie Beattie, see, there's the part of the protection. Let's not forget the state of Pennsylvania Racing Commission. Remember I said the fact that the corruptions of the state? This is a state agent that's completely corrupt. This guy, Randall, was the ex-president, the ex-governor of Pennsylvania. All right, commission, right? George Augusto is the attorney for the commissioner. He works for Penn National, 100%. As I said in the narrative, he cues in the banking commissioners, Sweeney, Ham, and Hunter, right? And I said that, one after another, were lying and showed that they didn't know. They were bought and paid for. Augusto controlled that. Not convinced? Well, Dan Tufano is the executive secretary of the Racing Commission. This guy right here, Jeff Castle. Jeff Castle is the commission's head of security at the racetrack. If you remember another video, he had told me that he knew about all the corruption. That the same people giving the FBI evidence was giving it to Jeff Castle. His job was to shut that down. Except for, you know what he told me? He told me that McGurlin, the vice president of the gaming, and Lowy, the director of racing, were going into his office every day and said, if you leak one word, you're fired. You know what he did? He called the commission. He spoke to Dan Tufano and said, what do I do? You know what Tufano told him? Shut up and don't say anything. So Jeff Castle's sitting here right now saying, I think they're going to arrest me. See, he sees the scapegoats going down. He sees the cover-up. They arrested bookies. They're not going to arrest Brown. Brown would put the politicians in jail. Boom. In fact, you know that restaurant they were working at? They allowed Brown to sell it. You know something though? Here's a statement from an FBI. In addition, Brown has strong connections with Shealy and also with the DA's office. Also with the governor's office, the Racing Commission. Now, Bruce Dupay, the FBI agent investigating this, said to him, Brown is filthy and going to jail. Really? Well, Brown wasn't going to jail. They let him sell his restaurant. You know why? Separation from the sign of the crime. Right. Let's ask for Brown's computer. And I'm going to tell you later how we get it. So the commission covered it all up. So Castle is scared to death. But he's telling the truth and he knows all this. See? The HBPA, the Union for the Horsemen, blocked. Commission blocked. DA blocked. Remember, Brown's running fundraisers for them. That's it. In fact, the one honest guy who wouldn't pull a horse for me was Darrell Delahousse, the same guy. Guess what? Machado went to try to indict him. How's that? We're going to shut the innocent up by threatening him. That's how they were trying to pressure me. Good luck. Now, let's go to how we can resolve this. And then what happened? So after all this happens, I call them out. They have a strike. You know who called the strike? David Wells. The same David Wells that got arrested, charged, and indicted. Now he's in jail for race fixing. See? So the guy who called the strike is in jail for race fixing. Interesting. More interesting, he worked and was the boyfriend of Stephanie Beattie. She was the trainer of the horses that were fixed. Why ain't she in jail? He's in jail and he worked for her. Because you know who has horses with her? Randall, Brown, They have horses with her. How's that for protection? Now, she used to be the belle of the ball at Penn National. Dress, mini boots. This is Stephanie Beattie today. I just had this taken last week. Right? Can you say stress? She's in New Orleans. You know why she's in New Orleans? They told her to get the hell out of town. They put the boyfriend in jail, told you to take a walk. Because she could give you Brown. Who could give you Shealy? Who could give you McGurl? You see how it works? Now, let's stop at these trainers. Wells is the guy who just went to jail, who worked for Beattie. Tony Adamo, Scott Lake. Tony worked for me. You know how this happened? I got suckered in. I was only the leading horse owner in the country. Money won and races won. So if you had a giant organization of cheating and you could plug in to my horses, that's a lot of opportunities you have to cheat. And that's exactly what happened. The racing manager I had a medical issue. Tim Hooper, right here, was a trainer for me at the farm, knew this. He was already robbing me and working with Scott Lake, with Kulog. They were still pulling my horses. But they needed an inside guy that I trusted. Yeah. And Tony Adamo was that guy. They had Tony already. I didn't know he was working at Penn National. I didn't even know he knew Kulog. So we wind up holding Tony, hiring Tony. Tony was working from these guys from the beginning. He was buying bad horses. He was selling my good horses. He was telling the jockeys to hold them. In fact, the jockeys were giving 20% of what they were earning to Tony. He was in on the bets with all of them. I was sold out before we started. Right. Now, let's go to the attorneys. Because now that I showed you the cover-up and all, let's see how we can beat them. Pincus. He's the attorney in Pennsylvania. You get in trouble in Pennsylvania for horses, you get Pincus. You know why? Pincus works for Penn. There's the other security blankets. You have a legal issue, you go to Pincus. Pincus works for them, puts it to sleep. Remember, I sued the jockeys. I sued the commission. Pincus quit right at the end on the jockeys. Because he was working for Penn National. Tony jumped out because he knew too. I didn't take the money from the jockeys. They offered me a settlement. I told them I want the truth. That's it. So now Ted Little and Friedman. Why is this as critical is? Ted Little was my personal attorney up here. He's the one who wrote those text messages. The first line in the text messages, I can give you Pollock. You can give me Pollock. What did Pollock do? He was part of the media blitz. I can give you Pincus. Now the guy who threatened my life, who's on these, who's Ted Little, it's this guy right here leaving with evidence. Getting picked up with a camp security camera. Right, that's him. See, he was involved in destroying things up here and covering up. But the people from Pennsylvania knew I was coming at them the same way. So they incorporated Ted Little. Ted's in a pinch between them all. That's why he's threatened to kill my whole family. Listen, we'll attach those text messages and him calling them out. This is what Pollock did with them. This is what we call juice. When this all came down, I was calling them out. This track was unsafe. They made it unsafe because they didn't have to fix it because APPA were in the bag. Right? They turned around and had Peter on me breaking down horses because there's nothing gets excited more than people at Peter. Except for Stephanie Beattie had more breakdowns than I do. And then just recently I figured this out. I said to myself, why would they go through a strike rather than just giving my horse a shot and me getting kicked out of racing? Why not? That would have been simple, right? And then it hit me. You remember Stephanie Beattie had 2 people in the spit box? If I had a bad test and found that out, I could question those people and why they worked in there. They couldn't have that. Because if there's a surety in this gambling and cheating, it's loading up that horse and having those people switch those tests. See? So they couldn't risk that. I just put that together recently. I'm telling you, these guys don't miss much. Now, what they had to do was cut my credibility. They hired Pollock to do that. That's why he came in cutting me up. ESPN, most hated man in racing. Really? Right, they even showed a race of all these horses falling down, breaking down. I wasn't in the race. Right. That's the kind of juice, and they take a paper right home. That's the juice. This guy Friedman, right with him, an attorney, he's part of the corruption in Massachusetts. He was working with Little, and so I would get indicted. They knew if I could go down on any one of these, because they own the politicians, they could do what they're doing. They helped them. In closing, there isn't a piece left out, except for one more. Bruce Dupay. Now, Bruce, I showed you a LinkedIn where you were talking to my controller, Lisa Tracy. Remember? She's in those text messages as a spy with the guy who threatened to kill my children, who also, if he's given immunity, will give you everybody on this board and the people in New Hampshire and Massachusetts. Really? That's what that guy to me. So tell me, this isn't that hard. Let's give, for now, one gentleman immunity. You know, the guy that was afraid for the life of his children. Let's give him immunity and have them give it. Now listen, if we're wrong and he doesn't know anything, he can sell these are just fine fellas. But what if he does? Don't you want one chance to clean up your state? I do in this state and I do in yours. This is your one chance. I'm not telling you get another one. This is indisputable by your politicians and government and payoffs. I've showed you wires. This is your one time. I looked into this. You don't think that I knew what I was walking into? Of course I did. I took the gamble of my lifetime, everything. They'll destroy everything. And I'm gambling with my life. I've had my life threatened 3 times in the last 2 weeks. For one chance, for you to see the truth and give our children a chance. You're training them to be sheep. If you're training them to be honest and have character. They don't survive in this kind of environment. And that's why I'm doing this, and that's why I'm risking everything. So please, follow these other items that I put together. Know that this is truly about the corruptions of your state. And this is one opportunity. What did you think Catherine Kane, your DA, found? You don't think she found corruption widespread and they shut her down? Now, the FBI, they know all this. I've told them this. They're covering up. You know why they're covering up? Right, Bruce? You know why you're covering up? Because you got to Brown, and you know Brown had all these other politicians and judges. And you went, uh-oh, we got to stop. Now, for the last couple of years, I could have given you this in 20 days. For the last couple of years, it's all been cover-up. And Bruce, one last thing, just before I close. You know what every good Ponzi scheme or organized crime scene, you know when you get caught? You know what you need? You need a scapegoat. Jeff Castle's a scapegoat, and he knows it. But Bruce, have you ever considered that you could be next? I saw an article on Penn Live. It said there was an apartment building in Harrisburg. It was a big drug raid in it. Turns out it was a crack house. You and your wife owned it. Nice job, investigator. But here's the real question. Why did it go back in the paper? Why is it out there? Happened years ago, didn't it? I didn't put it out there. But what if your bosses put it out there, Bruce? What if they started building you as a rogue? Because you are, but you're their rogue. But you know what? What every good organization of crime needs, they need a buffer. According to my calculations, that's going to be you.